So I'm very happy to be here this afternoon with in another session of our seminar presentation. And on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of National Open University of Nigeria, welcome all of you to this platform, and especially our presenter for today, all the way from Calgary in Canada, and wants to share his experiences with us. We are very privileged to have him here. I shall introduce him briefly. But before then, as usual, to remind us that we are not, I can't see any new face here, but I know that in the course of this presentation, more people will come in, and you're going to talk about our Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies. We are doing one of the things we are good at doing, and we have been mandated to do. But apart from just seminars, we have other activities, other mandates for the center, which we are trying to carry out. We are here. It's a center that was founded about 3 years ago now, with Set Fund, Seed Fund, under the tenure of the immediate past Vice Chancellor of National Open University of Nigeria, and that is under the tenure of Professor Abdallah Obadamu, who is unavoidably absent today because he has some other important engagement that he couldn't, put away to come here. He's always here with us. And here also we have our director, the first director of the center, and that is Professor Akim Tijani, who is always here, even sometimes before the director of the center. And of course, our emeritus professor, Professor Sogolo, who is always here to encourage us. His encouragement we really appreciate. So while we go on, I want to quickly talk about the mandates of the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Study. Is to provide leverage for field-based and solution-driven research, to serve as agents of national policy for migration and global studies, to seek grants for academic activities and outreach for sustainability. Today we have an accountant here. He may be able to also tell us more about how we seek grants, I hope, but we may need the services very soon. And also to publish and sustain peer-reviewed academic journal and monograph series. Journal is a international journal for migration and global studies. Another one we are expecting to come out before the middle of the year. We have a journal entering our volume 3, issue 1. So the journal has been ongoing, and you can just go online and log on to our sites, cmgs.nou.edu.ng, and you go straight to our journals on the site. You can read a lot of good things in the journal. And we collaborate with stakeholders in the field of migration, global studies, and policy makers. And then we organize occasional seminars, conferences, and public lectures in migration and global studies. As I have been reading most of these things every presentation, and we want to go on and on because we want to make it very timely today. And at all times, we are always conscious of time. So I'll go ahead now to introduce our presenter for today. We really thank him for accepting to present to us at a short notice, because we really didn't give a very long notice, but you can see that he was ready for us. And we also thank Professor Akim Tijani, through whom we met our presenter for today. And that is what I said earlier on, that he's always with us and supporting us and guiding us. So we appreciate you, Professor Akim Tijani, for your efforts. Today, our presenter is Mr. Uche Ezeta, senior accounting professional with board and management experience. And we're very lucky to have him in the diaspora with us. He's in Calgary and he's going to talk to us about practical presentation on migration and how to own a business outside your shores. And I'm sure we are all lucky. And Bachelor of Science degree in Banking and Finance in Rivers State University of Science and Technology, Mpolu, Port Harcourt, Rivers State. He is a certified management accountant and in Canada, certified in IFRS, Institute of Chartered Accountant of England and Wales. He is a Chartered Management Accountant, Chartered Institute of Management Accountant, Professional Accountant, and Chartered Professional Accountant of Canada. So this our accountants here, like I said, a seasoned accountant, over 19 years operational reporting and consolidation experiences for various organizations with revenue ranging from $700 million to $13 billion. I don't know whether some of us have counted $1,000 before. So this is a very big figure for me to call. And then, of course, it's a payroll accounting and reporting personnel. His CV is so full that I cannot do 1/3 of it because of time. But I want us to know that he has board level experience. He's a member, Audit and Finance Committee of Board of Directors, Accessible Housing Calgary. He was a former member, Board of Directors and Treasurer, Keys for Development Services. And he's also a Director of Finance and Administration. As at now, that's what presently is a Director of Finance and Administration. And so many things, and I'm sure you are going to read a lot of things about this presenter online. And I've told you about his degrees and all that. And of course, being an auditor, an administrator, a finance person, an accountant, and very grounded and very qualified all around. So we are all eager to hear from him. And I will say, I will want to stop here because, like I said, his CV is almost like a thesis. He is very well grounded, and we're happy to have him. And today, he will be talking to us about owning a small business as a migrant in Calgary, Canada, what you need to know. So we are all ears. Our presenter of today, Mr. Uche Ezeta, we want to hear all we need to know. Thank you for coming, and over to you, sir.
Thank you once again. Like Prof said, I'm going to talk about owning a small business as a migrant in Calgary, Canada, what you need to know. My focus on this presentation is to make sure that I'm more practical. Like, I didn't want to come here and talk about academics. I wanted someone who attends this presentation to be able to go away with something practical. And I also want someone who is maybe an intending migrant, or maybe someone in Nigeria who wants to own a business in Canada, to be able to gain some knowledge with my presentation. And before I move on, I also want to say that you basically, some of what I'm going to talk about here, you don't need to be resident in Canada to be able to run a business in Canada. You just have to comply with the regulations, you know. You just have to comply with what is required to run your business. So my agenda, like I said, would be, I'll talk about ownership of small business. And small business can be, if you want to run a grocery store, if you want to run a mechanic shop, if you want to run a small startup company, any of those small businesses that you can run, you know, in Calgary. So those type of small businesses, most times you need to incorporate them, you know. So I'm going to talk about incorporation of small businesses, what you need to know. Although you can also run small businesses as a sole proprietorship, but the focus is assuming you want to incorporate your business, what you need to know. I'm also going to talk about business owner remuneration. As a small business owner, this is basically one of the biggest decisions you have to make. Are you going to pay yourself a salary in Canada, or are you going to pay yourself a dividend? It's a very big decision, and that determines how you want to structure your small business. Then I'm going to talk about small business benefits. This is critical for staff retention. If you want to run a small business, you want to keep staff, you have to consider the benefits, and you have to pay for these benefits. And then we'll talk about pension contribution requirements. So we'll talk about the pension contribution cost and the benefits, how it applies to Canada. Unemployment insurance contribution, same thing. We'll talk about how the cost and the benefits and how it applies to someone who is running a business in Canada. And again, this is very critical because as a small business owner, at certain points, you may not be able to work. So if you don't work, how do you get benefits back? How do you sustain your family? So this is also important. And then I'm going to talk about payroll withholding taxes. Now, this payroll withholding taxes and remittance requirement, these are really, really important. You have to set up your business. If you incorporate your business, you have to make sure that you are remitting taxes and any other withholding payroll deductions. At a very high level, I'm trying to run away from talking accounting. We're just going to touch on corporate tax, but what you need to know and what you need to be filing on an annual basis. Then we also move over to compliance requirement and annual filing. Those are, like I said, the compliance requirements of what you need to make sure that your business is certified to be running every year. Some of these compliance requirements, if you don't meet them, your business registration can be deactivated. So those are also important. Then there's what we call goods and services tax. We call it GST in Calgary. In some parts of Canada, they have the HST, but I'm going to focus on GST. So it's similar to most of my audience is from Nigeria, it's similar to VAT, and that's another really, really important thing that you have to keep mind of. And then finally, I'll talk about small business funding. And this is important. I'm going to touch about it. I'm going to touch about government funding, private funding. And again, I would repeat, you don't actually need to be in Canada for you to be able to run some business in Canada. I repeat that, So, so finally, like I said, I'm going to talk about small business funding. Now, incorporation of small business in Canada. Incorporation, I believe, is similar to what we have in Nigeria, but it's always good to incorporate your business in Canada because that gives you some kind of legality, So the first thing about incorporation is you have to choose a name, which is normal. But the Alberta Corporation name consists of 3 elements. This is more of a guidance, though. The name must be distinctive, descriptive, and legal. So you have to distinguish your corporation from other business. So say you want to run, you're a medical doctor. You cannot say, give your business name mechanic name, You want it to be distinctive and descriptive. Descriptive, same thing. You just want to make sure that what the name implies is basically what you want to provide, the kind of services or goods you want to provide. After you choose a name, you have to run a search. They call it nuance search. That search report. Once you run that search report, you can keep it for 90 days, for which you can now submit. Once you run the search report, that name is kept for you for 90 days, which nobody else can use that name. So once you've complete running the search report, the cost can be between $25 to $150. And I'm talking about incorporating your business right now. Then the next thing you have to do is you collect all your information. It's important to note that I highlighted it here that Canada is a dual language country. You have the English and French language. So when you are incorporating your business, you can incorporate in either of those languages. So you collect all your information, articles of incorporation, notice of address, directors, all of the information. Make sure the fees are paid. You have the nuance report and valid ID. finally, you have to appoint an agent, and the agent can be you or somebody else. It mustn't be a lawyer, you know, but the agent must have an address. Why that is important is because the agent would be the contact of the province. So wherever you are, that name and number would be, anytime they want to contact anybody related to your organization, that agent, they would look at the file, and they are pretty good at that. They look at the file and send you an email and tell you you haven't filed your papers for this year or that, and all of that. So that agent is really important in your files. So once you incorporate your business, you kind of set to go. The next thing I want to talk about is how are you going to pay yourself? This is, like I keep saying, this is one of the most important decisions as a small business owner you have to make. Are you going to pay yourself, I call it business owner remuneration. Are you going to pay yourself a salary, or are you going to pay yourself a dividend? And everything has its own pros and cons, but it's a choice you have to make. Now, let's start with pay yourself a salary. If you decide to pay yourself a salary becomes a business expenses on your corporation's books. So what does that do? That reduces your corporate tax, because it's now a business expense, you know, depending on how much salary you want to pay yourself. Now you decide to pay yourself a salary, you have to have, that is now an employment income. So that is determined as an employment income. What does that mean? That means you have to issue a T4. And remember, in addition to paying yourself a salary, if you have employees that you have to pay salaries to, all of this applies to them. Now, we call it a T4. And let me also repeat that my presentation, I want to make it as practical as possible, so that even when you go back and run the recording of this, some of these terms will be familiar to you, and you know, and kind of make sense if you in future want to connect with an accountant that wants to set up a business for you. So you have to issue a T4. We call it T4 a statement of remuneration paid, you know. So at the end of each year, every employee is issued a T4. As a business owner, you have to issue a T4 to your employees and yourself. And there are two copies. You issue one to Canada Revenue Agency, which I'll talk about later, and yourself. So once you decide to pay yourself salary, you have to issue a T4 to government and yourself. Now, one of the advantages of paying yourself a salary is you can now apply, you have a lot of credits, tax credits you can apply to the salary to reduce your personal income tax, you know. And those tax credits can be medical, childcare, and all other deductions which employees can have. Once you decide to pay yourself salary, you have to register a payroll account with Canada Revenue Agency. This is really, really important. Because you must, once you decide to pay yourself salary, you have to be remitting deductions, and I'll talk about that later. Now, for you to be able to register a payroll account, you must have a business number. It's usually 9-digit numbers. The date employees receive their first wages, you must have those informations, and 3 months covered of payroll of employees' wages. So to be able to register a payroll account, you must have three of these items in order. Now, that brings us to withholding and remitting, withholding income taxes to CRA. As a small business owner, you want to pay yourself salary and you want to pay your employees salary, you must withhold and remit business income taxes to Canada Revenue Agency, you know. Generally, federal income tax bracket is between 15% to 33%. Provincial income tax bracket is between 5% to 24%. For Calgary, which is in the province of Alberta, the provincial income tax is 10% actually for Calgary. And finally, you have to decide if your salary is going to exceed 3,500, then you must double your CPP contribution. And CPP is Canada Pension Plan. But I'll talk more in detail about the CPP in the coming slides. So, the first salary. So the decision is between paying yourself a salary or a dividend. Now, if you decide to pay yourself a dividend, you know, so dividend, everybody knows dividend is in the equity section of the income statement, you know, so that's not a business income. Now in Canada, if you own a small business and you decide to pay yourself a dividend, that is considered investment income. That's really, really important. It's different from salary. It's considered investment income. Now, investment income has a lower marginal tax rate, you know, and I talked about tax rate in my slide here, you know. So I'm sure most people understand what marginal tax rate is, which means that the additional income will be taxed at a lower rate. Now, but if you pay yourself a dividend, the corporate income tax will be higher. So remember, let me also highlight, if you own a business, you have to pay a corporate income tax. And if you're paying yourself a salary, you have to pay an income tax for your salary. If you pay yourself a dividend, you have to pay corporate income tax, and you also have to pay investment income tax for your dividend. So basically, you kind of pay two taxes. So all of this is, how do you make each of them work for you? You know, how do you make the pay the lowest of the taxes? And I will repeat, it depends on your own personal situation. So once you're paying yourself a dividend, the corporate income tax is usually higher, but the investment income tax will be lower because it's considered, the dividend is considered an investment income. But then you have to issue yourself a T5 tax slip, which is also same thing with salary, called statement of investment income. You know, a dividend is not considered a business expense. Like I said, it's in the equity section of your income statement. So it's not, it doesn't reduce, goes back to the point, it doesn't reduce your corporate tax. And then dividends are issued and paid based on share ownership. So depending on how you set up your corporation, if you have your wife as your co-owner and all of that, then you can pay dividends based on that, and split your dividend based on that. One good thing about dividend is dividend can be flexible. You know, you can decide to pay yourself a certain amount in certain years. So in years in which you made a lot of money, you can be more flexible and pay less of yourself. So dividend, unlike salary, is more flexible. That can help you to save taxes. But the problem, one of the biggest problems with dividend is it can impact your credit rating. Now, most of us who live in North America know that most of what we do here is dependent on our credit rating. You want to buy a house, you must have good credit. You want to get a credit card, you must have good credit. You want to buy a car, finance a car, you must have good credit. Once you start paying yourself dividend, it is not really considered salary, so that can impact on your credit rating. So dividend can save you taxes in some ways, but it can also affect you in other ways by reducing, you know, your credit rating. So those are the things you have to worry about. Now, let me also highlight here that all of this is also applicable to maybe a consultant who wants to set up a corporation and doesn't want to work full-time for an organization, but wants to work as a contractor or as a consultant for an organization where they have an incorporated entity. They can, if they make a lot of money, they can do their books in this way and save taxes. And like I said, this also applies to medical doctors, you know, people who run their own firms, or pharmacists who have their own shops. All of this applies to them. Now, after you've made the decision on how you want to pay yourself, as a small business owner, you have to consider what kind of benefits you have to subscribe to. This is critical for staff retention, very, very critical for staff retention. In order for you to be able to keep employees, you must be able to provide some certain level of benefits to them. Canada has a free healthcare. But there are some limitations to the healthcare. For example, prescription drugs are not covered. Dental and vision are not covered. And those can be really, really expensive, expensive endeavors if you're an employee or a business owner. So the best thing for most people is to go in and buy into some of these benefits. You go to insurance firms and buy into some kind of health insurance or dental and vision and pay premium on a monthly basis. So that can get you covered and can also get your family and your employees covered for these benefits. Then the other one is retirement plan. In addition to the Canada Pension Plan, which I'm going to talk about later, you can have private retirement plans. Your employees can also have private retirement plans for yourself and your employees. Canada Pension Plan may not be, when you retire, may not be enough to cover all of your expenses, you know. So most employees and other people have private plans in addition to that. So you can register for a private retirement plan. Usually we call it RRSP. So how does the RRSP work for you, for an employee? And RRSP means that the employee will make some contribution and you as the employer would match it or make a certain level of contribution to the employee's plan. The contribution the employer makes becomes a business expense to you because that's part of your compensation cost. So that's part of the benefits you pay. So say, for example, you have an employee that makes $50,000 and they want to make 10% contribution annually on their RRSP. You decide to match that 10%. So you deduct 5,000 and you match the 5,000. All of this is sent to the organization that is responsible for managing the RRSP. Now that 5,000 that you matched becomes a business expense because that's part of a compensation cost, you know. And like I said, health insurance and retirement plan are very critical to retain employees. Short-term disability and long-term disability. So these are really, really important, especially for business owners. A business owners, for example, you own a grocery store. You may not be able to work. Sometimes you may fall sick. You may not be able to work for some time. Sometimes your kids may need you to take some time off from work, you know. Sometimes it may be family issues. Sometimes it may just be that, you know, you have other issues. Say, for example, you lost someone in Nigeria and you're a business owner and you want to come home and make sure, you know how we are, Nigerian burials are. You go home for 2-3 months. Does it mean you don't get any income? Well, you can subscribe to short-term disability if income replacement due to inability to work. I mean, there are eligibility rules here, which I'm not going to go deeply into, but you can be paid between 1 to 6 months depending on the plan that you subscribe to. Usually, the maximum amount is $650 per week, which can be about $33,000 per year, but that depends on how much you make and how much you've been paying in. You can also subscribe to long-term disability. Long-term disability compensation could also be due to, like I repeat, a longer-term issue, say an illness, and you are unable to work. That you can also get that kind of income replacement for 36 months. So you can be paid for 36 months, and depending on what the issue is. Now, there's what we call workers' compensation. This is mandatory for certain industries. And workers' compensation, there's a workers' compensation board. This is for industries, mostly for construction industries, when people have injuries at workplace, you know. So they collect benefits and they have work-related injury, you know. So in this case, they collect benefits from the Workmen's Compensation Board. Finally, on this, I don't know if I'm too slow, but finally on this, there's what we call business insurance. So you may have to subscribe to business insurance to protect your business from business interruptions, liabilities, and all of that. During the COVID times, this became a very important benefit to have as a small business owner because most people couldn't work. So pension contribution requirement, which is what I talked about in the previous slide. So contributions to CPP, which is Canada Pension Plan, are compulsory for all working Canadians aged between 18 to 70 years. So every employee must contribute equally, you know. In 2023, the percentage is 5.9% for employees and employer. For an employee that you have, the maximum that you have to contribute is $3,754 on an annual basis. You know, that's for an employee. So as a business owner who owns a business, you have to deduct this amount from the employee's paycheck and make sure you remit it to CRA. But for a business owner yourself, so remember, as a business owner, you have an employee, which you have to pay the CPP for, and you also have to pay for yourself. So for a business owner, you have to double what you pay because you are paying for both yourself as you are an employee. So for yourself as an employee and for yourself as an employer, you are basically matching for yourself. So as a business owner, you have to make sure you pay 11.9% so of your compensation generally, but the maximum amount yearly is $7,508. So this $7,508 is double $3,500 for an employee. So as a business owner, you must make sure that you, at the end of the year, you remit this amount for yourself in order for you to have fulfilled your requirement of pension contribution for the year. Now, in certain situations, I just added this here. In certain situations, an employee can elect to stop contributing to CPP in order to be eligible for this election. The employee must meet all of the following conditions. The employee must be at least 65 years of age, but under 70. Now, yes, you can elect, but you can elect if you're 65. That means that technically you want to retire. That's why you can elect not to, even if when you are working, you want to retire, and you don't want to be paying into the CPP again because you've reached the retirement age if you're working. So that's the only situation if you can elect not to contribute. Let me repeat, for a business owner, the portion in which you contribute on behalf of the employee and your portion in which you match is a business expense to you. So these are some of the costs that you have to bear. Unemployment insurance contribution. So unemployment, unlike the CPP, which is Canada Pension Plan, EI, which is employment insurance, is voluntary for self-employed. This is a decision you have to make, but it's important that you may decide to go with it because you can terminate your participation at any time, provided you have received EI benefits as a self-employed. Now, when you decide to sign up to EI, employment insurance premiums, for your employees, you have to pay 1.4% of what you deduct as premiums from them. So you have to deduct from your employee's paycheck and then match it with your own 1.4%. Remember again, 1.4% you are matching is also a business expense to you. Now, there is a percentage rate for calculation of this. Usually for business, for EI, it's usually 55% of anybody's annual pay. But there is a maximum amount of which, you can calculate that 55%, which means ultimately, you can't earn more than $650 per week. I repeat, this $650 is about $2,800 every month, and it's $33,000 a year, $33,800 a year. EI so as a business owner or an employee that you have, if they go on EI, they can earn EI between 14 weeks to a maximum of 45 weeks. But to be eligible to earn EI, you must have, as a business owner or an employee, you must have worked for at least 420 hours of insurable hours to qualify for the EI payment. I also repeat again, for a business owner, the portion you match for the employee is your business cost. Payroll, withholding taxes, and remittance requirements. I talked about this earlier. Once you set up yourself as a salary or you have employees, you must deduct their salaries, wages, and taxable benefits. So taxable benefits, before I forget, some of those benefits I talked about, like health insurance and all of that, are all taxable benefits. When you pay your employees those, or when you subscribe to those benefits, they become taxable on the employee's income, you know. Government taxes them on that because they are taxable benefits. So you have to deduct and remit all the taxes to CRM. In most cases, you should remit your source deductions by the 15th of the month, you know, that you pay. So say you pay on the 30th, and it's always good to remit on the 15th, most times. If you are a small employer, you can change. There are different rules, no matter, depending on how small you are. Then most times there is a remittance schedule. When you sign up, when I talked about signing up your payroll account, they'll send you a remittance schedule, which you would fill out. There's a form they call the PD7A. PD7A. This is the payroll remittance form, which you have to fill up. Then you have to fill in the premiums, the contributions, and the federal income tax on a monthly and annual basis. Annually, you also have to fill this out. So it's a little bit of work for a small business owner. To fill out the appropriate form, you can write CRA a letter and include all the following information: your name, position, telephone number. So this is purely, once you're setting yourself as a business owner, you need to provide a point of contact for which, you know, they will communicate with you. Finally, I included a link here for a payroll calculator. So this link here, anytime you copy it and paste it, it can tell you how much you can pay your employee at any point in time. It's a government, it's on the government website, a government calculation. This calculation never goes wrong. It properly calculates how much you can pay an employee, how much you can pay yourself, and what the taxes are, the CPP amount, the EI amount, if they're all applicable, and taxable benefits. So it's a good reference point for payroll providers and also payroll professionals in organizations. I know, a template income, template income on what is being deducted. So, for example, you have a gross earning of 100,000. So basically, 16,000, provincial tax 9,000, CPP 3,005. This is maxed. This is purely for 2022 income year. And then your net pay. So you make 100,000. Ultimately, your net pay could be like 69,000. This does not include taxable benefits though, but this is more like a template, a template paycheck. Or a sample payroll deduction. This is how it works. As a small business owner, one of the other most important things is you have to file a corporate tax. Generally, an Alberta corporate tax is 8%, and it's one of the lowest in Canada. Alberta small business tax is 2%. So basically, it's about 10% on the total. You have to file your corporate tax on an annual basis. Some corporations are exempt, like not-for-profit, but that's once you're not-for-profit, then you can't file taxes. For corporation income tax, the form is called a T2 form. You know, T2 is very important. The T2 form is a mandatory corporate income tax return for federal government of Canada. Every company must file a T2 form. Every small business owner must file a T2 form. Every medical doctor must file a T2 form. Everyone, if you are a consultant and you complete your business and you want to be working on a consulting basis, make sure you file a T2 form, or else the CRA will come after you. So compliance and annual filing requirements. I just listed what I feel were the compliance requirements, that a small business owner should make sure that they comply with. Like I said, I wanted this presentation to be that when you can go back and look at some of the terms and it makes sense to you. Like I said, you choose a business name, annual provincial filing. You must file your information annually. And it's not just the T2 or the tax. You must file to the province of Canada, or else the penalty is they will deactivate your account. They will take away your business number. You also must file annual tax filing and remittances. I talked about that earlier. And T2, payroll remittances. You must do that. Insurance requirement. This is generally a guidance. You have property insurance, general liability insurance. I talked about some of this earlier. Cyber security. Directors and omission. This is an important one. Directors and omission and officers insurance. Directors and officers, if you're a small business owner or you're a consultant or a medical doctor, you have to have this insurance because, and also the general liability. Because if you make an omission while providing your services, you could be sued, but this insurance usually covers you, We talked about business insurance, which is more during the COVID times. This was really important, Goods and services tax. So like I said, this is similar to VAT. So GST, it's 5% in Calgary. Calgary only has GST. In Ontario, they have what they call the HST, which is a higher percentage, but I'm going to focus on Calgary. So GST for Calgary is 5% of tax imposed for supply of goods and services that are purchased in Canada. So every good and service you purchase is taxed 5%. But there are certain goods that are tax exempt, and some of it are like education, medical facility, exports, childcare. So there are certain goods that are exempt from this. Even taxi, driving, Uber, commercial ride sharing, Uber and limousine service. Those are tax exempt. But every other goods and service, you must charge a 5% GST on it. Now, registration requirement. Now, for you to be able to register for GST, you must register for GST if you make 30,000, if you make 30,000 or more in 4 consecutive calendar quarters. And when I mean 4 consecutive calendar quarters, it doesn't mean from January to December. It could be from October to the next quarter. So 4 consecutive from any time. Once you make more than 30,000, you must register. This is mandatory. If you don't register and the CRA decides that you have been making enough money, you can get a bill saying that you owe them so amount of money. So it's important. This requirement is so important. Registration for GST. But if you make less money and you don't make up to 30,000, you just have to keep track of how much you make every 4 quarters to determine if you want to go in and register for GST filing. So this, let me also repeat, this involves you filing GST. So this is another filing on your plate. Input tax credit for GST. So once you're a registrant, you can get portions of your GST back. So basically what it is for commercial expenses, which you use to generate revenue, you can get it back. So when you file your GST, how it works is you can file in how much you have collected from your revenue sales, and then how much you have spent from your expenses. And the amount that you get back is called the input tax credit, So you can get back some money, and it's called input tax credit. Now, important point here, non-registration or remittance of GST, the penalty is equal to 1% of unpaid amount or 0.25% of amount multiplied by the number of full months which the return is late. So when you are late in filing your GST, this penalty applies to you. But also remember that if you don't register and it's determined that you must have registered, you should have registered, there would also be, usually they call it a GST audit, and the government will determine how much they think you have collected over that period. And you will be asked to pay that in addition to these penalties. Small business funding. So the good thing about North America is ability to source for funds. Easy. I don't want to say it's easy, but it's a lot easier than I can remember in Nigeria. So there are a lot of banks who give small business funding, and I only listed two here, TD and RBC. They give this funding up to about 100,000, and it's unsecured. But you need to walk into the bank, give them a business proposal, have a chat with an advisor, and interest rate is key. You can have those conversations. But I listed two web links here for people to copy and just check them out. Then there's what we call leverage financing, which is if you have good credit, you can get a credit card. You can use your credit cards, but credit card fees are so high, which I don't know if I can advise that. Then you can get a line of credit. Line of credit interest rates are really low, generally. Then there's what we call the home equity line of credit. So this home equity line of credit, when you own a home over a long period of time, and you would have been able to gain some equity on the house, you can take out a loan on the equity. So we call it a home equity line of credit. So it's secured by your home that you own, technically. But the good thing about this home equity line of credit is that the interest rates are so low, and the interest on the home equity line of credit, if you invest it in a business, is tax deductible. So that's another source of funding for you. You can refinance your mortgage. Say you have owned a home for several years, and you've paid down some of the equity, or you've paid down some of the equity. You can also go back to the bank and ask for refinancing, refinance it, and take some money out of it in order to invest in your business. But then there's a good part. There's the government funding and grants. General eligibility for government funds. Alberta, for example, and Calgary, they do have a lot of funds and grants for businesses, and they try to support businesses to get on their feet. And these grants are different types of grants. But generally, the general eligibility for that is that you must have a registered business name, you must have a number, you must be located in the city or province or country in which you want the grant. So say, for example, you are in Nigeria and you have a business office in Canada here. Your business is in Canada. You can also make sure that you have a co-ownership with someone who is resident in Canada. That may fulfill some of the requirement of this, if you have a partner that you are working with. So for you to be able to get those grants. Now, I listed, there's several grants. I listed two websites here, which people can go in and, just look at the business resources and look at the type of grants that they may need, and see what they can apply for, and what they can qualify for. I listed the Alberta one and I listed the Canada one. Like I said, there are a lot of grants in there that people may qualify for depending on your focus and what you want to do. Yeah, and questions. I don't know if I have enough time for questions.
Okay, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. I really appreciate it. And before you finish, some people have signified their intention to ask questions. So I would like to start with Emeritus Professor Sogolo, then Professor Tijani. I think those are the two. So let's hear from you, sir, Professor Sogolo.
Mr. Uche Ezeta for a very clear presentation. He made it clear from the beginning that this was not going to be an academic paper. And truly, it is a business paper. But there are some questions, some areas in which I'm not too clear. You talk about incorporating a business in Canada. And almost throughout your presentation, you give the impression that there's no distinction between who you are, where you come from, when you are doing business in Canada. Are there no such, criteria? For instance, saying that if you are a Canadian, you can set up a business in this area. These are the conditions. But if you are a foreigner, this is the way it is. If you are from North America, for instance, this is what you require. If you are from Africa, you require this and so forth. I didn't see that point still, but the impression you have given is that everybody is treated on an equal basis. That is possible, but I just want some clearance on that. Then the other point I wasn't too clear of. You talk about setting up a small business, but without giving a definition of what constitutes a small business, how that is different from a medium-sized business and from a big business. It's just that one would like to know, have some clearance about that. Then the other point where I'm not too sure of is that you talk about setting up a business without putting some range. Is there some financial demand that is required of? Is it everybody there? Are there ranges? In other words, if I go into Canada and I'm a medical doctor, all I have is my expertise. I do not have any investment, and I want to set up a company. And I want to give employment to some Canadians or maybe foreigners. What are the constraints on me? For instance, that I do not hire people, give jobs to people, and I cannot sustain them. What do you have to how do you put it now? What do you have to put down as guarantee for whatever you are doing? I didn't quite see this aspect, so you can just explain some of these questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for those queries. And I'm sure our presenter will do justice to them when it's time for him to respond. So let's quickly go to Professor Tijani. Okay, I can see Dr. Noja. Dr. Noja, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. And then congratulations over your recent professorship. And then Mr. Uche, thank you very much for the lucid presentation. My comments are some, Professor Soglo has already raised some, in terms of ease of a foreigner, like somebody now based in Africa wanting to set up a business, maybe online or with a partner. You can throw more light about some practicality in terms of that kind of situation. Then in filing papers, do you need to, as a small business owner, do you need to use accounting firms as we do here for filing of these papers and all that, or is something that can be easily done? Then I don't know if you've had situations whereby is there any advantage in people coming together in terms of partnership to achieve the objective of setting up businesses? which goes to Professor Soglo's question. When you say small scale business, what does it really mean? Thank you, and over.
Thank you very much.
Director.
Yes, sir.
Yes, there was a point I wanted to raise, which I just missed the point.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I want him to include it in the answers he will provide. You know, in Nigeria here, we have a guideline where you register a company, for instance, it's all stated clear. But the theory, most of the time when you find you are really going to register a company, the theory is always different from the practice. In other words, even though the kind of guideline that is stated by Uche are stated clearly in Nigeria, but when you go in there to want to register a company, you find the situation totally different. I don't know whether you have that kind of problem in Canada between theory and practice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think I enjoyed these questions, comments that our presenter is being given, because already on my own paper, I said that Naira, when we want to use Naira to come and do dollars business, how practicable is this? I mean, because most of us here, we have Naira, and we are coming to Canada to use Canadian dollars to do business, because definitely our Naira cannot go beyond the shores of our own country. So if we want to come, how do they look at us? How is it? I think you can look at that angle and advise, because some of us seated here may say, oh, that's a good one. I want to try this Canada thing. How easy will we go? How much will we need in terms of capital to start this business, as Prof was asking, in graded forms, small business, moderate business, big business? How much do you think we need? Because I may actually be planning to come now and be a businesswoman. So I want you to kindly expatiate on that. And I'm like a Prof has also asked, like, grants. I say, I want to know more. I know it's about a business. Grants, can we have grants for other things? Of course, you said it's not really about academic something, but grants, is there a way to look in for grants? And non-citizen, like he has asked, how can they give us when we are not citizens and all that? So having said that, I can see Professor Tijani is back. Let him quickly add his own, then we'll go over to you to give responses to this concern.
Thank you very much. Yes, I want to thank Mr. Uche for sharing an expensive knowledge with us. This is priceless. And as we were listening to him, I was checking to see if we have colleagues in entrepreneurship, participating. This presentation should be shared with them so that they can play it to those students thinking about entrepreneurship, even for those of us that are thinking of JACPA. It is practical. It is priceless. I'm saying this because by His grace, I have the opportunity of knowing the two sides of the Atlantic. And what he is saying, I think I've benefited a lot, because even in the United States, the issue of registering and then paying county taxes and what have you, I was discussing with my wife, was it just yesterday, not even knowing what Mr. Uche will be telling us. So the thing is that he has given us a workshop, but the workshop, the audience supposed to be more of our students with teaching about entrepreneurship, about those that are thinking about even jackpotting. But you can do that without even leaving the shores of Nigeria or Ghana or any place. If you understand the rules and regulations, we have rules and regulations in developing economies, but the implementation of those rules and regulations is what is our main problems. We have the facilities in terms of credit facilities, but it is all about networking and corruption and bribing. Okay. So the practical thing he has shown us, I just want to thank him, and also accepting at a very short, notice for him to do this. I will pause, but I will implore all of us to go back when the video is shared with us and listen to the presentation, because I listened so deep and I've benefited a lot in terms of his presentation, even in my own comfort zone. Thank you very much. And thank you, Director, for sealing the deal to bring him on board and presenting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, I can see another hand up. Professor Bewaji. Okay, let's quickly take his own, because it will pay you to answer all, the questions,
Yes.
So
Professor Bewaji, over to you, sir.
Yes, first of all, congratulations, madam, on your elevation.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations. Professor Sogolo, I greet you.
How are you?
Here.
Thank you.
Professor Tijani,
Nice
good
to
morning.
see you.
Yes, and the presenter, thank you so much. As Professor Tijani said, that was a wonderful presentation. Only minor question I have is there is that aspect of what he calls crime insurance, which he didn't talk about. I was hoping that, he would say something about crime insurance. It's at I think on the second to the last, or the last slide. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir, thank you very much. I will now allow the presenter to address these ones before questions. Maybe more questions will come up, but let's handle these ones first. So over to you, our presenter, for the questions and comments. Thank you.
Yeah, so it looks like I may have to do another presentation, because before when I was prepping for this presentation, I tried as much as possible not to be too specific, have a general conversation. So most of the questions you are asking me, I'm going to answer them on a general level, but some of them actually require a lot more detailed explanation, so I'll start with what Prof has asked me. You're asking about status, Yes, so status in itself, we are going towards your visa status at this point. What is your status? How can you, So my expectation is, or the idea for this presentation is, you have someone who has jumped into Canada, and he already has his status, he has his papers, and then he wants to do something. That's one expectation. Then the second expectation is, maybe someone is sitting in Nigeria and they're thinking about something like this, so they want to connect with a partner in Canada who has a resident status so that they can set up a business. The idea is for them to have some of this knowledge. But back to your question, yes, for you to start a business, you must be a resident, you must have a work permit, so you must have a valid status. You can't be an illegal alien trying to run a business. You wouldn't be able to register. You wouldn't have social security number. Like, you know what I mean? So that's what I mean by that. So the assumption here is that, yes, your status must be legal for you to be able to start a business like this. Now, the question is, what is a small business? Now, I don't know. So what I'm going to say with this is, when we do taxes, there's what we call small business deduction. That small business deduction means that if your gross revenue is less than 500,000, you get that deduction, 500,000. What is the capital amount? I would say based on my experience, like I did help a doctor out recently, and I still consider her a small business. She made $650,000. But that's small business. So I would say anything less than $1 million is a small business, because you have the 500,000 small business deduction. Now, this does not stop you from when you want to own a grocery store. A grocery store may cost you about $100,000 or 80,000, or you want to set up a small shop to maybe a restaurant, for example, a Nigerian restaurant, for example, that may not cost you 500,000. That may be 50,000 or 60,000. So the idea of what really is a small business, I would say any business less than $1 million is a small business, because you have the 500,000 small business deduction applied to it. I didn't want to go into this number in order not to scare people, but this is also a whole different conversation on itself. Now, what are the constraints? Your question is, what are the constraints of establishing a small business? Now, yes, there are constraints. And again, like I keep saying, maybe I have to do another presentation. So for example, if you want to set up a medical office, you must have your license from the Medical Association of Canada. So that's a constraint in itself. If you want to set up an engineering consulting firm, you must be registered with what they call APEGA here. So that's a constraint in itself. So you must have your regulatory approval first for whatever business you want to do. So that's in itself, the assumption is you already have this, so you're trying to set up your business. So that's a constraint in itself. Now, Prof, I remember what you said about theory and practice, that in Nigeria, they say theory, if you do this, you do this, you do this. Prof, I lived in Abuja, and I lived in Lagos, and I came to Canada. What I would say is this: the Canadian system gives everybody a benefit of doubt. Those type of constraints that you're saying, I would say they don't really apply. If I don't want to say, yes, they don't really apply. If you are a medical doctor, you get the approval, you want to set up, you set up. There's no, there's no word when you go there and they will tell you a different thing. No, once you meet the eligibility, it's simple. I'm saying this is my experience. I don't know of somebody else. I've never had a situation where something else is written and something else is asked of me. No, I think the Canadian system gives everybody a benefit of doubt. The theory is basically, in essence, the practice. It's what it is. It's in there. You go, they say this is what it is. You fill it out, and they call you. They give it to you. Even grants. The point is, when you're applying for grants, you need to look at the eligibility. If you meet the eligibility, you're going to get the grant. There's no way that you're not going to get. I'll be surprised. Let me not say there's no way. I'll be surprised if you don't get it. So that's that question. I don't know if I answered all of Prof's question. Then the other question was about being a foreigner and owning a business. So what I would say with this is this. There are constraints for when you are a foreigner and you want to own a business in Canada. And I know one or two people who are in Nigeria who have a registered business in Canada. I actually do taxes for one of them. There are constraints. Some of the constraints are you need to discuss with an accountant, but part of it is this: you must have a registered office in Canada. So let me just list generally what they are. You must have a registered office. So you must have a registered office. So what people do is they kind of partner with Canadian residents, like Nigerian Canadian residents, and use their offices or their homes as their address, So that's what it is. Then ownership structure too. Ownership structure. The resident must have a greater share of, when you are incorporating it. The resident, your partner resident, must have a greater share of the business ownership, So there are some constraints at that level. But I don't want to focus more on the constraints because all those constraints are achievable. And like I said, there are people in Nigeria, at least I know one person or two people who basically have businesses from Nigeria. Every month when they make their money, it goes into the Canadian account and they withdraw their money. And at the end of the year, they file their taxes, they file the provincial taxes. Like I keep saying, I have a few of them. So yes, there are constraints, but I don't want to focus on the constraints, but they are all achievable. Then filing your papers. Yes, you would my advice, if you need an accountant, my advice is at the early stage of your business, you probably need somebody to hold your hand. One thing about filing your papers is the more you do it, the more you look at all the forms, the more you understand what you need to do. Once you're really good at it, you may not need to use an accountant, but at the first couple of years, yes, you really need an accountant to assist you, especially on the regulatory side. Now, the question about partnership, yes, if you want to start a business from Nigeria, ideally, yes, your best bet, if you don't have a resident status, your best bet is to seek for a partner. And your partner may be silent. You call it silent partner, silent partner who may just be a part owner, but you do all of it. Everything these days has gone global. I know someone who has an educational online school that is registered in Canada, but he's in Nigeria, so you need a partner. Now, the capital amount, again, somebody asked about capital amount. I talked about 500,000. I don't want to scare people with money. You can start your small business with whatever amount you have. The money doesn't matter. The money doesn't matter. But generally, capital is any amount that you can start with and what you want to do. Crime insurance. Someone had a question on crime insurance. Crime insurance, yes, crime insurance is really, really important because depending on the type of business you do, you could, if you have an online business, your business could be hacked. If you have a grocery store, which is more like, say, supermarket, you could have a break-in. Those kind of insurance cover for crime, that's what basically crime insurance is. I'm not sure if I answered every question.
I'm satisfied.
Let me, may I add one or two things?
Okay, Prof.
Thank you. I think you've really answered all the questions, but it's also important for us to know that having this knowledge before one think about relocating is important. And it could be for Canada, it could be for US, it could be for United Kingdom, Australia, anywhere. It's a globalized economy, global world. I can tell you that in some instances, even registering a business, and I'm a living witness, you do not even have to step into the office. You don't have to step into the office of the agency, and you do not have to pay anybody depending on the type of business. For instance, there are sole proprietorship, as we know in our secondary school business method class. Then we have the partnership. But for us to achieve most of what Mr. Uche has presented, I think partnership is the best way to go because of your legal status in that particular country. You have a partner. There's also that element of what they call the LCC, limited liability companies, that are sole proprietorship in status or partnership in status. Then there are cooperation, like the big money, people. So we have people that can also relocate based on their money bag and get even permanent residency right from, from any location. Just as we currently have skills visa, I have known and I still know even some of our folks that have used skill as a pathway to permanent residency in US, for instance. All you need is your master's degree. And then you go to the website. I know about 5 that did it on their own. All you need to do is have the information, read the regulations, And I think above all, you pray. Don't mind me, I'm a kind of little prayer warrior. I believe in my God. And that has really been helping me. So those are some of the things that we should also note as we think about, starting our own business. We do not have to, as Mr. Uche rightly mentioned, leave Nigeria. I can tell you the issue of someone having educational outfit in Nigeria and making dollars. We are a witness. When we say we are a witness, I just dropped our daughter for the running club. She does English tutoring. Okay, she's in the 3rd grade. And when I discovered that Mrs. Rookie is based somewhere in Nigeria, I keep wondering, what is this tutor, whatever? And I noticed that they registered in their company in US, but they operate out of Nigeria. So, and they are making their dollars. We have people that have, so we just have to seek knowledge, as the Prophet of Islam said, even if it's in China, which was the farthest they know as of their period, So that is the little thing I want to chip in. So it's doable. But again, our entrepreneur unit should think more about harvesting this knowledge, this information. And when we talk about JAPA, we should be looking into the positive aspect of it without losing the skills, the manpower of Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Jamaica, to the developed economies. Okay, and we can still also harvest from them. Again, I thank you, and I cannot but say congratulations, Madam Director. I was the first, if I'm right, historically, and as a historian, to share the news, to circulate the news of your professorship worldwide. And I joined them to formally, for the record here, to congratulate you again. You deserve it.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you
Mr.
so
Uche
much.
would like to see you again.
Yes,
Director will talk to you.
yes. In fact, I'm really, really educated. And some of us say we don't have business traits. We cannot do business, some of us. I think, Mr. Uche, maybe if you look at it from academic point of view, it would have made us know some psychological traits of those who can do business, some characteristics of those who can do business. Some of us, we may not be good in business. So some are good in it, even if it's in Canada or in Nigeria. But maybe when we want to bring in academics now, but from what we have heard today, I think it's quite enlightening. And I know some people here may want to be very much interested and say, yes, let us go for. I want to let Professor Shijani know that I think Dr. Awolumate, the Director of Entrepreneur, is online. Yes, he's still around. Dr. Awolumate is here. Yes, yeah. That's the Director, Entrepreneurship Unit of National Open University of Nigeria. And I cited him online. So
he's somewhere in the
here
Caribbean, chilling.
Okay, he's in the Caribbean. He's in Nigeria.
Good to see you again, sir.
Same here, sir. Good afternoon, sir. From Nigeria here,
yeah.
Sir.
He's in Nigeria, so he's
I know,
here.
I'm just messing with your background,
Okay, sir. Yes, thank you so much.
He's enjoying every bit of it, and I'm sure we'll come together and think about one or two things. But I think I love this topic, and I want to really thank Mr. Uche for. Because you know why I'm even so impressed is that I gave him a very short notice. You know, some people will give them 3 months and be reminding them every second, and yet at the last minute they will disappoint us. But he, from day one, was okay with it and didn't disappoint us. And everything was about 2 weeks or less, a little more. So he's so fantastic, so generous with his time, because we are not paying a dime for this. It's free of charge, FOC. And so, okay.
Let me quickly say that he was given a marching order, and I thank his former colleague or classmate, who is one of my PhD students here at Morgan State University, Mrs. Atabo Bridge. She's doing her doctorate. I can't see her here. I sent her a test, but I think she's She's at another workshop on campus, which I will join at 10 o'clock. So, well, we at the same time, we thank her because we thank him for accepting. As you rightly said, we've had some that have been so disappointing, but we have really gained, and hopefully it will contribute to the National Open University, the most distinguished institution in Nigeria, where learning is occurring, where before COVID and before all this rushing to do whatever people are doing now, even overseas, they've blazed the trail. And with the support of our mentors like Baba Sogolo, the former VC and the current VC and the Madam Director, folks like Dr. Olumate, we will fully utilize you as a Nigerian, that we will gain our skills that you took to Canada back.
Very true.
Okay, Dr. Olumate, you want to say something?
Yes,
over to you,
very
sir.
well. Yes, thank you so very much for this subject. It's a burning, when the Vice Chancellor listened to the last webinar, so he gave us an assignment. Dr. Ali, I'm sure he's raising up his hand on that same note.
Yes. Yes.
We'll be reaching out to, for Nigerians in diaspora, so that they can benefit from other, established entrepreneurs in the diaspora on this noble lecture you gave us this afternoon. So we'll be coming back to you, sir, at the appropriate time. I will be speaking with our director, Professor Aneto, after this meeting on the details. Dr. Ali has written a concept note. Professor Juliet and I worked on it. I'll be meeting with Professor Aneto on that subject. I will be coming back to you, sir. So we know that, like Professor Tijani said, you'll give us all that we need to run that moose course to benefit.
Okay, I think he's frigid now. So let's hear from Dr. Ali.
I'm so sorry, my network blocked out. Okay, Dr.
Yes.
Ali.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Sam has already taken the words out of my mouth. But nevertheless, just to emphasize that, Mr. Uche, we're coming for you very, very soon. Because we're looking for people that will be part of the case studies we're looking about. And also, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have companies that are running in Nigeria successfully, and I want to have branches in Canada. So if you are open to that, very soon I'll be hitting you on the private arm in terms of collaboration. So the question is, do you have a consultancy outfit where you can also be available to offer services like that? Are there possibilities? Because I know myself and many people who have businesses in Nigeria, because of the insecurity, all the things that are facing, want the opportunity to partner with, people over there to, keep the frontier going over. And thank you very much. In fact, the answers brought out more in terms of the practicality and all that was needed. Thank you very, very much. Over.
Okay.
Dr. Professor Aneto.
Yes, please.
Let me quickly respond to this before Mr. Uche took advantage of this offer. The first one is that Dr. Noja, for the US side, you can, and it's private, since you are a private businessman, making extra money out of NOUN. I believe it's not on the NOUN time clock. But in any case, we have academic links associate, and you can consult with me. I won't charge you too much. You are my brother. It's registered.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Yali.
Also important is the fact that we have to sign that MOU with Morgan. If you go to Morgan website, you will see Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center. Selected students from NOUN. I know NOUN is huge and it's even bigger in terms of student population than Morgan. We are just about 11 or so, the size of Lucy Alaji. Okay. Yes, but it's a traditional institution. So the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center is one of the areas that NOUN, when that MOU, is signed. So regrettably, Professor Adamu, Uba Adamu, did not sign. And he did not even know, that is the truth, I'm on record. He did not know that he did not sign. It was when he returned, he was visiting, and then Professor Peter had become the VC. And I told him about something going on. He said, oh, I have signed. I said, no, you didn't sign, sir. And of course, we have to go to the barrister who did not release whatever. So it is an internal politics. I'm no longer a staff of NOUN, although I'm doing gratis, supervising 3 PhDs. But the point is, both the director and others listening. In fact, Baba is here with us, Professor Sogolo. Can remind Professor Femi Peters about that MOU that was supposed to have been signed since the last few days of Professor Abdallah Ubadam. So that some of this exchange, bringing some of your students doing this workshop, looking at the US side, looking at Canada side with Mr. Uche and so many other stuff will continue to lift up the visibility of NOUN. And then those who look down on NOUN in the past, until we started this particular webinar during COVID, will sustain their change of heart to hire our students. I say our students because I am still affiliated, but I'm not collecting any salary. I'm on record, you can check. I did not even for a year.
You don't even need that salary. You need to give us something.
I will discuss it. Professor Tijani, I will discuss the matter with the VC.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay. You don't need salaries. You need to continue your gratis.
No, Prof. I now know that, I don't, they said I'm a professor that has come to Abuja to count bridges. But I told them my bridges are the students that I produce. And I like that. So nobody can say to Johnny, come and explain this morning.
Yes.
Or this and that. We thank God. We thank God. So we can do a program agreement also with Mr. Uche's outfit. It doesn't have to be a full-fledged MOU, but a program agreement. And I believe Dr. Awolumate and Dr. Onoja will work that out. If you need assistance gratis, I will, tell you what we'll be doing and crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I'm very happy that some of these presentations and contacts we have here, we are making use of them properly, and we continue to have what we call metamorphosis. We continue to reproduce and have more things to come out of them. So we really want to thank Mr. Uche. He has made today also a very big day for us, a feeling gathering. We thank you, and we'll be reaching out more. After this, I will contact him and we talk more. So we really appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, and for more that will come from it. We hope you will always welcome us. Don't be tired of us. We are together. Thank God we are all Nigerians. Thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody who has stayed this long, even though people were not many on this platform, but the few that have stayed to this time, we know that they have gained one or two things. I want to thank Professor Bewaji, who is also always there for us every time he comes around and shares with us. I thank Emeritus Professor Tijani, and so many. Actually, everybody is highly welcome. Everybody's presence is appreciated. Whether I call your name or not, we thank you for being there, for sparing your time to listen to what we are saying. Because if we put this program up and not a soul come to listen to it, we will not feel fulfilled. So your presence listening is also part of our fulfillment. And we thank you so much for sparing your time to be with us. Thank you, everyone. And I think at this juncture, I call it a day. Thank you and bye. See you in 2 weeks' time with another interesting webinar. Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Blessed day.
Bye.